within that rebirth and death, when do you know you're close to your soul's path? Because it shifts on the outside, but then that center, which allows you to glow, how do you keep that?
You have to become attuned to that depth of feeling. And a lot of us aren't necessarily used to just pure life force energy, ecstasy, explosions of gratitude and joy in the body. Like if we feel that for even a brief moment, we might want to run away from it because we don't actually know how to hold that. And the goal is to feel that way as much as possible. I think our bodies aren't conditioned to trust those feelings because we all have this really like set point of the amount of joy, love, success, abundance that we allow ourselves when things are going so well for me. Like I'm manifesting this, after that. I will just have to sit and digest that, like sit in the deep gratitude, talk about it, journal it.
Is Space Whispering Podcast with Rainy. On this episode, we sit down with Hannah Summerhill, who is a manifesting coach and researcher. She's also the host of her own show, writer for Vogue and Elle, and founder of the Magic Membership, a manifestation portal for those ready to manifest their next big up level. We are building a community of soulful whisperers and creators. Join us by subscribing, leaving a review, following me on Instagram, Rainy_, and if you're ready to transform your space into something authentically you, and if this episode inspires you, imagine the worlds we can create together. Book a discovery session at rainy.co and download my free Space Whispering Mini Method Guide. Whispers, keep creating spaces that feed your soul, and let's whisper together.
Hola, Hannah. How are you?
Hi, Rainy. I'm so good. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me today.
I am super excited to have this conversation with you and for having you here. I think it was manifested. So,
Oh, yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely manifested.
Yeah. I always like to start with like knowing your name and like the significance of it and how did you feel growing up and if it has like a story and yeah, how do you feel like when you were younger to now with your name and its
Oh,
significance or history? Yeah.
that is such an interesting question. So, my name is a palindrome, Hannah, Hannah. So, I always liked to say growing up that I was perfectly symmetrical because I was like, I've got a symmetrical name. My name's a palindrome, and there was this book called Hannah is a Palindrome. So, I liked my name a lot growing up. I liked my sisters' names better, though. I thought my sisters had cooler names. Their names are Ariel and Matea. But as the oldest of the three girls, I think I owned my name, in the sense that I owned my big sisterness and my firstborn child and, with some authority. So I do like my name, but it's so funny because, I'm married and my husband, we usually just call each other babe. And so he like doesn't say my name a whole lot. So when he does, it's like, oh yeah, that is my name. Cause you never really think about it. Like, I am Hannah. I am Hannah. And actually, like, if you ever do that, like if you ever said to yourself, I don't know if you ever do like, I am Rainy, I am Rainy, I'm Rainy, it kind of puts you in like a trance like state. And I don't know, I feel like I've liked my name throughout the years. Then when I got to New York, I worked with a lot of Hannahs and I would be like, damn, like I kind of wish I had a more unique name because there's Hannah this and Hannah that but now I just feel really proud to be Hannah Summerhill. I took my husband's name. I feel like it suits me really, really well. And yeah, I feel like when I got married and changed my name, I like entered this whole new energy and vibe. I feel like I kind of, not in a patriarchal sense, but I just feel like my husband's last name is so sunny and people are always like, oh, it suits you. And people actually ask me if it's a fake name, Hannah Summerhill, like if I just made it up. But I kind of feel like I became the person I was supposed to be, not because of him, but for some reason, the power of the name change really kind of transformed my life in some ways.
Wow, that is so beautiful. I like that. I really like your comment on making sure that it's not because of your husband or because you're submitting to this idea or a law that we have created as humans, but because it actually feels like you were waiting for that name. Right?
Yeah, thank you. I've never been asked that question before, so I'm hoping it made sense. I'm hoping my answer made sense, but yeah, I really like that question. How about you? You have such a beautiful name.
So my name growing up, I didn't accept it because it's very long. Rainelina in Spanish, and it's Rainelina. And it's a created name by my older sister, she was 6 years old. And it was a mix from my mom, my dad's name, and her name. I used to listen to this beautiful artist called Stephanie, and she had long blonde hair, and I wanted long blonde hair and named Stephanie because I used to just listen to her, and I felt very connected to her songs, which was about love. And I had very good friends that were named Stephanie. Also, my family never called me by my full name, so it was Rainy. And they shorten it and they put an I at the end instead of an E. My friend one day in high school, he's a musician, and he used to call me Rainy Day. And like the first time he called me Rainy Day, I just felt like, oh, like now,
Love that.
now I can explain my name in both countries because I've always lived between the US and Dominican Republic. And so Spanish and English. And then it was like all combined in one. And I'm like so grateful for him. And I think it's like your Summerhill for me, like Rainy Day was like,
Yeah.
life changing. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Wow, we kind of have similar stories. That's funny.
Yeah. I want to know why you do what you do today. But before that, I saw a post of you or a writing you did about your face and how much it changed. And I have a story behind it, but I want to know your story. And I think that was when it was like set in stone that I just connected with you because I connected through that story of your face specifically. Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yes, I think that our faces usually are a reflection of how we're feeling inside. And as a manifestation coach and a spiritual seeker and spiritual finder, I have felt like the closer I've gotten to my soul's purpose, the better I've looked. And I recently turned 38 in February, and I pride myself on not having any Botox or anything because I honestly just don't feel like I need it. But I have the same kind of vanities that a lot of people do, but I also am very low intervention about it. And I believe that you can manifest the way that you want to look. And I believe that the closer that you are to your soul's purpose, the more effortless it is for you to glow. And it's not about beauty standards and it's not about conforming to some ideal, but it's really about looking like the most happy, brightest, grounded version of yourself, whatever that is to you. Because beauty is so subjective. Like there really is no blueprint. It's whatever we decide. And there's so many incredible studies. There was a study done in 2007 called the Intention Experiment, where a group of people in London sent an intention to a leaf in Arizona, and they sent the intention to the leaf to glow and glow. And when looked at under a special camera, this leaf, it was a geranium leaf from a desk plant. The biophotons had a massive increase compared to another leaf that they looked at under a microscope that was not sent the intention. So we can, with our own minds, if that can be done across space, we can, with our own minds, really impact the way that we look and feel in our own bodies. And so when I was in my 20s, I lived in New York. I was working in advertising in the magazine industry, and I was climbing the corporate ladder. And I was drinking a lot, going out to eat a lot. So I didn't have the healthiest lifestyle. But at the same time, I was working in a very superficial industry where I felt like I had to conform to some ideal. the magazine industry. Even though it's for women, it's not necessarily like a feminist space, quite the opposite, actually. And then after I quit my job in 2020, after 10 years working in advertising sales and magazines, I started to figure out what my soul's path was. And now when I look at pictures from now versus then, I'm just amazed at the way that I feel like my luminosity is bigger, is brighter. I feel like I have aged in reverse. I feel like I'm just glowing and glowing like that little leaf from that study. And it's really incredible. We think that the way to beauty is somehow external, like we have to buy certain things or follow certain trends, or get certain treatments. But really, it sounds cheesy, but this is backed by science, and I've seen it work in my own life, which is the closer you get to source. Source is infinite energy. Source is infinite light. Source is infinite beauty. How could you possibly not look better and look your best and shine so bright that you glow when you get closer to source? So that's a bit of my physical journey that I've had.
I love that. And through that journey, so like, because I'm guessing there has been times of detox from that lifestyle, from the people, from the job, and also from your body. So how did you navigate that till today?
Ooh, that is a great question. When I left my job, I was used to working a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or, whatever it was. And even though I had autonomy, I feel like when you leave a corporate structure, you actually need to detox from a sense of authority that other people have over you. So when you become your own boss, you might still hear your former bosses, or like a amalgamation of your former bosses' voices in your head telling you when to wake up, telling you how to do things, telling you that you're not working hard enough, telling you how to spend your time. So when I left my job, it wasn't just like instant freedom. In some ways it was, and my body got to relax, and I got to rest, and I got to catch up on life in some ways. But the mental detox is actually a bit harder. So I stopped drinking. I stopped going out to eat as much. It also coincided with the pandemic starting. So it was a big shift for a lot of people. But during that time, I was really grateful that I decided to do dry January and then just keep going with it, because I know a lot of people drank a lot during COVID. And I was really grateful that I made the choice to be sober. And so I was physically detoxing, but it took years for me to really mentally detox from the corporate capitalistic structure. And I think I fully embrace people taking an entrepreneurial route, taking a break from the corporate world, or a sabbatical if you can, if you're allowed to. And just keeping in mind that kind of overbearing overlord in your mind that's telling you that you're doing something wrong with your time or your energy is something to look out for. And that wasn't something that I had ever heard anybody talk about. And honestly, like leaving one's job was not something that was considered smart or was encouraged at all. When I was 29, was super burnt out, and I had this very intense job working at Vogue. And I remember thinking, if I don't leave this job, I feel like I'm going to actually die. And I was having all of these health issues, going to doctors all the time, so much tension in my back and my neck. I couldn't move it. I was a chiropractor. I was having panic attacks all the time. I thought I had a brain tumor because I was having crazy migraines. So I ended up leaving my job when I was 29, against the advice of everybody. Like, oh, you don't have a job lined up. What do you think you're doing? You're going to have a terrible time trying to find one if you're out of work. And I just ignored all that. And I remember people saying, what are you going to do with your free time? And I was like, I'm actually not going to do. I'm not going to do anything. I just need a moment to not be productive and to think and to rest. Yeah, our culture does not prioritize that. And then when you do get to rest, your mind can be a little bit brainwashed from the structure from whence you came. So yeah, those are things people don't really talk about. That's a bit of my journey.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah. I people don't talk about that, and it is true. But I also think that it takes so much of your personal courage and determination to be able to, like, yes, listen to the people around you, because they do it out of their love in a way, and they're worried, but that is not my worry. And actually it's not helping me. And so, like, protecting yourself from those voices, I think it takes a lot of energy, which also then makes you tired.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
Yes, that is so true. Yeah, not having that emotional and energetic support from people. Absolutely.
And so I don't know, this is so vulnerable. I feel like it's so beautiful that you share that, because, sometimes we forget, like, the journey, or people don't see the journey from point A to B. And so that point in the middle, it's like so tough. And sometimes you feel alone, because not a lot of people is doing what you're doing in that moment that you're doing it. Maybe now that you have manifested something different, then everyone around you has gone through a similar process. But when you're through it,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I had a similar thing when I left my job, my corporate job, and it was like my dream job, and I was happy. But the thing that stopped me was actually connecting with nature. And so it's like, oh, I have the job that I wanted, like even the life I wanted, not even the job, just everything around me was exactly what I dreamed of when I was in my teens. Not that much when I was young, like younger than teens, like more when I had like this mentality of what a future is, and like what in society is accepted or not, or what I thought I wanted. And when I got there and I was confronted with nature, I realized that I didn't know who I was in that process. I kind of lost this drive or these goals. And so that's when I was like, I need to leave this job, not because I don't love it, but because I lost that identity or that connection with self.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I think that's so brave, and I can relate on such a deep level too. Were you working in a big city? Were you working in New York when that happened?
No, I actually was working in Kansas City because I went to KU, which is the University of Kansas, and that's where I did my master's. And I went there for love. So I was in a relationship. I was married, and it was like the school that was there because he found a job there. And so I ended up in a good program, thank goodness. But I felt limited of like, I wanted to go to Europe, or I wanted to study in New York, which is the city I know, but I was in the city. And so I was there. But the coolest thing happened, that the job I ended up getting, but it's the coolest thing. They had projects in Dominican Republic. And so I was living between the US and Dominican Republic, which was like my ideal dream, even higher. And then I was working with Kids Museum in the US, movie theaters. And here I was designing a whole mall that was hosting. And so I was flying with the clients to Vegas and see projects, and like I was going to Puerto Rico as well, which they had projects there. And so I was like working all these like very cool projects. But when I ended up leaving it, I ended up in New York. And so that was a whole process.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So you've really been all over the place.
Yeah. And like while in New York, I would just travel to Europe or Costa Rica, or there was projects here that were calling me. So architecture never really left me, even though I wanted to because of that. But when it clicked that it came back, I also did a yoga teacher training. I did Reiki, and I just started like a lot of cleanses. And so I started reconnecting with the body through nature and through this part of me that was in a way shut, like silent, the spiritual side. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. That is beautiful, because that is really like when we are away from our screens, away from man-made structures, when we're in nature, it really is such a reconnection. And I feel like it's just not something that when you're working for somebody else, they care about one thing, which is your productivity, typically, right? Not your happiness. So you going out and pursuing spiritual experiences or reconnecting with nature, like that's something that has to be so self-led, because you're never going to have a boss who's like, go for a walk, or like take a vacation. Like that just does not really happen. So you really do have to advocate for yourself in that sense when you're a worker or you're an employee, and go do what makes you happy. And it's probably, by design that nobody's encouraging you to do that, because you might leave and figure out that there's way more out there for you.
So how was like your rebirth? How were you first able to, leave those stories behind and then become the person that you are today? Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. Let me think about that. I feel like I'm in a constant state of rebirth, to be honest with you, Granny. And I love that, because I think that we are all our greatest mysteries. And I do really feel like, it sounds cheesy, but I do feel like the answers are all within ourselves. So going inside, doing inner work, that's just been something I've been doing, honestly, what feels like my whole life. I'm a Pisces, so I feel like I'm very introspective. But this current evolution that I'm in came from so many just ego deaths, like learning to not connect my value to some fancy job title, and instead connect it to how excited and lit up I felt about what I was doing and what I was contributing to the world. I feel like I also had an ego death about, money, about material things, about age, all of those trappings that can consume so much of our brain space. And being a manifestation coach now, it's just the most gratifying thing to see my clients win, to see my students win. And giving back to others in that way truly feels like the best gift. Like when I was working in a corporate job, like it would feel great to make my bosses happy. It would feel great to sell things and make a big commission. But nothing is as gratifying as giving somebody tools to give them the agency to change their own life, to elevate their own energy, to feel better about themselves, to live a magical life. And that's really my goal as a manifestation coach, is to help other people upgrade their life, make their next quantum leap feel easy, within reach, and possible. Because in the society that we live in, it's very, we're sold this idea of like it being very linear. You have to climb the ladder. You have to go from A to B. You have to get all of this done before you can make this amount of money, or whatever it is. And the actual science of the universe, quantum physics, like doesn't follow any of those laws. And so we can really empower ourselves when we start to learn that. So for me, like my journey of death and rebirth has just been like unlearning and relearning so much about our society, what it teaches us, what it requires of us, what it expects of us. And then just being brave enough to, and feeling like maybe I'm alienating people by just rejecting the things that I don't feel like serve me, and striking out on my own path.
And so, for example, like within that rebirth and death, when do you know you're close to your soul's path? Because it shifts on the outside, but then that center, right, which allows you to glow, like how do you keep that? Yeah.
That's a great question, because you have to become attuned to that depth of feeling. And a lot of us, myself included, aren't necessarily used to just pure life force energy, ecstasy, explosions of gratitude and joy in the body. Like if we feel that for even a brief moment, we might want to run away from it because we don't actually know how to hold that. So for me, I know when I just feel this like deep gratitude, like this deep like explosion of like love and peace, and it can feel a bunch of different ways. It can either feel really grounded and satisfying, or it can feel so exciting and explosive and sparkly, like effervescent. And the goal is to feel that way as much as possible. But at the same time, I think our bodies aren't necessarily conditioned to trust those feelings because we all have this really like set point of the amount of joy, love, success, abundance that we allow ourselves. And if we go above it, sometimes our egos can start to freak out because it's just unfamiliar. So when things are going so well for me, like I'm manifesting this after this, after this, after that, I will just have to sit and digest that. Like sit in the deep gratitude, talk about it, journal it, talk about like share it with friends that will support those wins for me, right? But I do feel like it's okay if you don't know what that feels like yet, because as long as you are on some kind of journey towards your truth, even if it is a mess along the way, and I think we're all on this journey, to be honest with you, just making sure that you stop to appreciate the present moment when things are good. Like that alone can feel like an epic manifestation, because in reality, what we're living in right in this exact second is something that we manifested, is probably a version of ourselves that our younger selves would be so incredibly proud of. So back to your question, like, how do you know when you're getting there? I think it's trusting your body. Like your body will tell you. And when you're feeling those feelings, whether they're of joy, ecstasy, discomfort, or gratitude, just let yourself feel them, sit in them. Don't reach for your phone, don't try to distract yourself, but just try to see if you can let every moment feel like an absolute beautiful manifestation. That really is such a hack. Like we live in the now and we're always manifesting, thinking that a future now will feel better. We actually have the opportunity in this moment to generate whatever feeling we think the future will make us feel. So that's really the magic. And I hope that answers your question.
Beautiful, like beyond. And I love I love the practical parts that you give, because feeling the feelings and having that capacity to feel, I think it's one of the greatest gifts we have as humans, and we forget that. And you mentioned the word discomfort, which is also part of that process, feeling the sadness, feeling the discomfort, feeling the pain.
Yes.
I want to bring it back to the soul's path. You were working for a corporate, you left it, created your own company or your own services. And then do you still work? Did you come back to that? And the reason I asked to your past, because for me, I mentioned before that I was leaving architecture and I was going more towards like a wellness path, but I wasn't sure that I was going to teach or express that. It was more a personal journey. And I was lucky enough that I didn't have to work while doing that. Just work came because it was part of the process, but naturally. But I now combine wellness with the design, and that's what I call space whispering. And so that soulful approach to design, it's what has me having these conversations and designing from a different perspective. And so I'm guessing something similar happened to you, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool how you combine those two loves and created space for that to exist too. Yeah, so I grew up just loving magazines, and it was my dream to work at a magazine, and I wanted to be a writer. And I interned in college at several magazines, including Vogue. And then when I graduated in 2009, it was the recession. So there were no jobs to be had. And so I wanted to be an editor, like I wanted to be a writer at a magazine. And instead, I ended up getting the first job that I could that was open at an assistant level, which was an advertising sales assistant at Shape magazine. And when I got that job, I was like just happy to be in the door at a magazine, but it was at a totally different side than the writing side. I ended up really liking the advertising side though, and I saw that you could make so much money on the advertising side through sales and commission, and the salaries were so much higher. So I thought, I want to do this. I don't want to be a writer, you know? So I climbed the ladder, but still, I always just loved writing. And as an advertising exec, I wasn't really able to be super creative. It was much more about the bottom line. So when I left that in 2020, what was really amazing is that I was able to manifest going back to my first love, which was writing. And now I am a freelance writer. I published a book in 2023 with my former business partner. We got a book deal with HarperCollins. And then after that, I was really able to ground into the identity that I had really abandoned, which is I'm a writer. I'm a writer. So then I started writing for Vogue, writing for Elle, writing for Time. And it was this beautiful, like, weaving in of a first love, but something that I didn't want to do full time. Because let me tell you, the writing gigs do not pay very well. But at the same time, I would probably do it for free because I love it so much. So now I have my manifestation business. And when I feel inspired, I can pitch stories. And I'm inspired by a lot of things. I like to write about culture. I like to write about equity. I like to write about manifestation. I like to write about beauty. Like, I don't have necessarily a beat. And I love that I don't have a lot of pressure around writing. I can just pitch things that inspire me and get to write for some of the brands that I dreamed of writing for when I was younger. So I've woven those two things in together, I've woven so many of my interests together in ways that I thought I used to have to keep completely separate, which is, manifestation and consciousness, pop culture and writing and allyship. So those are all just like a big part of my identity.
Wow. My heart feels so expansive with you saying all of this because it's so true. It's like yourself, and it evolves with you. Like everything you do evolves with the person you're shining today. And then also excited that you went back to your first love, which is writing. And that, yes, it probably doesn't pay much, but it keeps you, practicing and showing up, and it's part of the sparkle for your joy to do the other work you do. And so it's all connected, I'm guessing. Yeah.
You're exactly right. And it's such a fun creative outlet too. It's whenever I'm working on a piece right now, and it kind of starts off as a big lump of clay. And then that's kind of how I like the metaphor for how I see an article that I'm going to write or an interview that I'm going to conduct. I like the raw material, like all the words is like, if it's a transcription from an interview or whatnot, or just a longer form piece, it's like a big lump of clay. And then I just like slowly chip away at it and form it into something that like begins to resemble what I imagined. So yeah, it's a really, really fun creative process for me.
Yeah, similar to design. It's so true. It's so creative. Okay, so when I look at you and I see how beautiful you are, and it makes sense that, that you're just glowing from the inside out and vice versa. And so I want to ask you if there's like a practical thing that you usually do for yourself that maybe other people can help them, start that process and then shift them to what to your services today. And so, yeah, I would love to know if you have something.
Yes. So you mean like a practical process for like opening up to manifestation, starting on their soul's path, that? Or do you mean like what do I actually do to like
Yes, what you actually do, but I also love what you said before
Okay.
because I think it would be connected and it gives a timeline to then, finish with how people can work with you. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So my morning routine is everything to me, and I fully suggest to everybody who is either in a spiritual journey or on a spiritual path or wants to be on one to make your mornings as high vibe and special as possible. And for me, I'm fortunate enough that I can keep my phone on silent all morning. I don't look at it until I've done my dream journaling, I've done my journaling for the day, and I've done my meditating. And in my meditations, I always set the intention, obviously, to glow and glow. But one of the things that I love to do is just create an aura bubble. So when I create an aura bubble, I just think of something that I'm grateful for, and then I place my hands in front of my heart and I create energy with my palms by rubbing them together. And then I just slowly let my palms expand to wherever just feels like the perfect place. Like you will definitely know. And then within that energy bubble that I've just created, I will put in whatever I want to experience that day. And I will be as general or specific as possible. So it could be something like protection, luxury, success, sensuality, beauty, somebody telling me a certain thing, like they just signed up for my program or something like that. And I will just sit in that energy. So I'll create the bubble and then I will kind of toss this bubble up, let it settle around me, and then sit in that energy. And what I'm doing is I'm just acting as if it's already done. I'm just trying to feel as like it is as real as possible, because that is a massive manifestation hack when you can get to that point where your mind and your body believes that you're already experiencing it. So whatever you need to ignite those feelings, do them and you will see magic happen in your life. So whether that is making a visualization as vivid as possible, whether it's raising your energy and celebrating something before it happens as if you would when it actually happened or came to fruition. We really manifest with our energy. The universe doesn't speak English, it speaks energetics. And what is our energy saying? And we've got our hand on the dial of how high we can raise it. So those are the practical things that I do in the morning. And then at the end of the day, I cut my cords. So anything that I've picked up energetically from people throughout the day, any connections, mental, physical, like even if you're just like walking through a crowded space or like if you're in a bar, you may have picked up some funky energy. I just imagine a bright white halo above me coming down my body and just cutting any cord that is draining my energy, just refreshing my energy. And then before I go to bed, I think of something that I'm grateful for from the day and something that I'm proud of from the day. And those are just great ways to bookend my day. And if you don't have like time to do spiritual practices throughout the day, at least give yourselves a couple moments in the morning and at night. It will make a huge, huge difference. So those are the kinds of things that I share with my students, my one-on-one clients. I have a portal, a manifestation community called the Magic Membership, which is a monthly community where people who want to manifest their next quantum leap come for the lessons, the tools, and support to make that happen in a fun way. With me, of course, as their biggest cheerleader. And I'm so proud of this community because it's grown so much since I launched it just 5 months ago. And it is a global community of men and women who are dedicated to living magical lives. So I love that community so much. I feel like co-manifestation community is so key for manifestation because it increases the momentum. And when two people's energies meet, it creates a beautiful synergistic effect. So I also love just the support that I get in community. seeing other people win reminds me that my wins are just around the corner and that it's possible for me too. So one of my values is community, and that's something I'm very proud of creating, is the Magic membership. And then I also do one-on-one sessions with clients. So I love tools. I love manifestation tools. I reach for tools all day, every day. They are my secret weapon for manifestation, because I think so many of us are like, okay, but what do I do? I need something to do. Like, my brain needs something to do. Give me a tool. So it's like when I'm using my own tools, like, life is good. and manifestations are coming in and magic is happening.
Wow, so beautiful. So beautiful. I'm just filled by your words, by your energy, by your time. And just listening to this and listening to you, I feel blessed. So imagine what it would be to work with you directly. So thank you. Thank you. Anything
Thank
else you want to share? Yeah.
I'm just honored. I'm so honored to share this space with you. Thank you for your incredible questions and the space that you are creating as a space whisperer. And if anybody wants to connect with me, my Instagram is @HannahSummerhill. I would love to hear what you're manifesting and how I can help you.
Beautiful. And it would be on the show notes. So thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you. It's so lovely to meet you.
Space Whispers. Thank you for spending time with me today, your host, Rainy, on the Space Whispering podcast. I hope today's episode gave you something to reflect on, inspire you, or energize you to create something beautiful. Help us grow this soulful community and spread the love by subscribing to the podcast, leaving a review, or sharing this episode with your community. If you're feeling called to transform your inner or outer spaces into a true reflection of you, let's connect. Schedule a discovery session with me at rainy.co or Instagram rainy_. What soulful actions will you take today? Keep listening to the whispers of creation and let your soul's magic flow into the world. See you soon. Besitos.